Hey there, if maintenance labor is constrained right now and you wish you had more people, or you're trying to use overtime to overcome a capacity issue in terms of the labor that you have available, you need to watch this video. Hey there, welcome back. So my name is Ed, and I am the founder of World Class Factory. And what we do is we help food production companies create world-class maintenance department, ultimately decreasing maintenance costs and increasing uptime. So maintenance labor and having capacity constraints in terms of that labor. So if you're running a lot of overtime right now, or you have openings because you're trying to hire more people because you have a lot of maintenance activities or a lot of maintenance work that needs to get done, whether it's preventative maintenance or reactive maintenance, correctives, projects, whatever. If you don't have enough people and you're trying to either compensate with more overtime or you're trying to hire more people, I want to share something with you. So before you start adding more overtime or trying to hire more people, I want to talk about a concept in this video that I think I hope will get you to open your mind a little bit and maybe think outside the box on how to um, get more out of the team that you have now. Now, I want to be a little disclaimer here. I'm not saying that we need to make people work harder. We need to have people work smarter and actually make it easier on our technicians so that they can get more done in a day with less stress and less headache. So to set this concept up, I want to talk a little bit about any given maintenance activity. So if you think about a technician and their sole purpose is to go out and to work on assets, work on the machinery, work on equipment, right? And if you think about the time that they are actually working on the equipment, working on the asset, we would actually call that the value added time. So the value added time is the time that they're actually wrenching, they're working on the asset. Anything else that they're doing throughout the day is either considered non-value added time or auxiliary value added time. So let me kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So again, think of this circle here as uh, the entire time that a maintenance technician is available. Okay, the time that they are working on an actual asset is what we call, again, the value added time. In the world of reliability, the world of maintenance, we also call this the wrench time. You'll hear me talk about wrench time a lot. Wrench time is the value added time that a maintenance technician is applying to an asset. Over here, next to value added time, and I already mentioned it slightly, is the non-value added time. Now, this is just anything else that the maintenance technician is not, when they're not actually working on an asset. They're not actually wrenching, okay, which is, I use the term wrench time. And then this third piece is what we call the auxiliary value added time. So auxiliary value added time is something that's sort of in between. So an example.
Hey, real quick, if you're liking this video, like, share, and subscribe. Cool, back to the video.
Might be technician might have to adjust a torque wrench before they actually go and do the torquing of a bolt. The torquing of the bolt would be the actual value added time. Adjusting the torque wrench might be the auxiliary value added time. The non-value added time is everything else it took to actually get to that bolt to then do the torquing. So in our world of maintenance, we want to make sure that we're maximizing this, right? We want to make sure that the value added time is as much as possible for every single maintenance technician in the factory. We want to make sure that the non-value added time is as close to zero as possible. And then this auxiliary value added time, we just want to do our best over time to minimize that as well. It's tough to really get that to zero, but because sometimes the activities are necessary. Now, when in most settings that I go into, that we go into, what is typical, and I'm going to sort of walk you through how to do this yourself, but what is typical, unfortunately, is that the percentage of time that we will typically see of the value added time, and again, these are just on sort of point to point case studies that you can do in your own operation, but what we witness quite often is this is anywhere from 20% to 25% right out of the gate. So this is an average number. And again, what that means, right, if you think about the time that a technician is in the operation. So let's just say they're working an 8-hour day. That means that only 20 to 25% of their time that they're there, they're actually adding value to the assets. So think about that for a second. So let's just say it's 25%. If they're there for 8 hours a day, that means that only 2 hours out of that shift, they're actually adding value to the assets. The rest of the time falls into this non-value add or this auxiliary value add bucket. So think about that. So if you have, let's say, 10 technicians and you currently have 2 job openings because you're just falling behind on work orders. There's a lot of fires that you're trying to put out. There's PMs that your PMs you're getting behind. Your PM backlog is growing. You've got projects you want to work on. So you say, let's go hire 2 more maintenance technicians, right? You want to add 20% to your maintenance labor pool. Well, one thing you could do is figure out how to decrease the non-value added time, assuming you're in this 20 to 25% range, uh, to add those 2 individuals, right? I mean, this is very, very possible, and we do this all the time with our clients. So I just want you to think about that. So 20, 25% is typical. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you real quick in the non-value added bucket. What are some examples, or what is that? What are the categories of what non-value added time is? And then sort of give you an idea on how to actually go do a little bit of an assessment in your operation. So if I think about this non-value added time, I'm going to come down here to the next page. And this is where you've probably seen this acronym before. It's called downtime, and downtime is an acronym, and I'll go through each one of these here to talk about this. But each of these letters in this acronym, downtime, is a component of something that may be driving that non-value added time that your technicians are applying their time to. So again, if they're working there for 8 hours and they're 25% wrench time, that's their current wrench time. That means that 6 hours of the day they're doing non-value added work. It's going to fall into one of these 8 categories. So let's kind of walk through each of these very, very quickly. I'll do a video on these eight categories in more detail later. But for the time being, I just want to kind of run through the definitions of each of these so you can start to think about it. So the first one is what we call defects. So defects is a quality metric. So if you think about this, this may be in a maintenance technician's world. If they go up and they do a job, whether it's a corrective, an emergency, PM, whatever it may be, if they made a mistake and the actual task they performed, they have to come back and do it again. There's rework that falls in this defects bucket. The next one is overproduction. Overproduction is, actually got a sheet here I can share with you guys at some point, but overproduction is like you're overproducing whatever it may be. So this may be like getting ahead on a task, which leads to what we call getting in the way. So in the maintenance world, overproduction is not usually a problem, but I'll give you one example of overproduction might be maybe fabricating parts that aren't necessarily needed, right? So you maybe have a maintenance technician that is in the shop welding, let's say brackets together for some piece of equipment in the production floor, but he or she has made like 100 of them, and you really only need like 10 of them on the shelf, right? That's an example of overproduction. The next one here is what we call waiting. Let me try that again. So waiting is pretty self-explanatory. This is where somebody's waiting for something to happen. So again, in a maintenance technician's world, any form of waiting, right? They may be waiting for production to shut a line down. They might be waiting for a part, waiting for a tool, etc. This next one here is one of my favorites, called non-utilized talent. This is where you don't have the proper cross training, right? That's necessary, and it's causing you don't have so if someone is actually trying to perform a maintenance task, if someone's trying to perform a maintenance task but they don't have the knowledge, they're going to have to read manuals, they're going to have to go and find someone to help them, they're going to struggle to get the job done, right? So that's not utilizing the right talent on the right task, and creates a lot of non-value added time. The next one here is transportation. This one is most popular in you'll see this a lot in maintenance operations where this is people walking around, right? So just a lot of movement that is unnecessary. So a common one, and I see this quite often, you're probably familiar with this, is walking back and forth to the shop looking for parts and tools for a particular task or activity. So that's a big one, right? This next one is inventory. So again, maybe parts, tools. I mentioned maybe fabricating parts that are for a piece of machinery on the floor. If you have having too much inventory causes a problem because it costs the company money, and also you actually wind up losing a lot of parts. You get dirt, dust, debris all over the parts, and then when it comes time to go to use them, you can't find them, and or they're sort of in a corroded, non-usable state. So inventory is can be a problem as well. Motion. So this is motion within the task. So if you think about doing an actual activity, let's say the torque wrench example, if um, if there's too much motion required or there's too much motion that's happening in that specific activity, then there's some opportunity to improve that. Again, in the maintenance world, I don't typically see this one as being a big one, but it's something to kind of to think about. And then the last one here is what we call extra processing. Extra processing is doing the same thing multiple times, but it's not necessary. It's not adding value. One example, most common example I think of, and I share all the time, is let's say you torque a bolt and then you're done, right? You got it to torque spec, and you pull the torque wrench off, and you go back and you torque it again. That's an example of over processing. If the torque wrench is calibrated and everything's in good working order, there's no need for you to go back twice and actually do the job, do the torquing twice. So that's an example of over processing. So the last and final thing I want to share with you is on how to actually, what to do with this information, right? So if you're running high amounts of overtime and or you're looking for maintenance labor, the first thing you need to understand is what your actual wrench time is. If you're anywhere below 50%, I would highly encourage you to start to look at ways to increase that wrench time. And there's multiple ways to do it, and in order to get back some of those hours of your existing workforce. And a good way to do this is, and I've done this before, and typically what I do is go and shadow a technician or two, and actually, and you work with them, and you just tell them, hey, we're going to go out together. We're going to look at the jobs that you're working on today, and try and identify where the value added or where the wrench time is occurring, and then everything else we're going to put into categories of these 8 downtime. That downtime acronym kind of identify in a given, let's say 8 or 10 hour shift of a technician. You're just going to literally do an assessment or kind of an audit, if you will, with the technician. So don't do this without their knowledge, because it's kind of creepy, and it's going to cause some animosity. But do it with them, so that with the intent that you want to make their job easier, and you actually want to help the company as well, right? So hopefully this is useful. Again, don't go hiring a bunch of people or running a bunch of overtime until you have a clear understanding of what your wrench time is. If you have any comments or questions related to this particular topic, go ahead and leave them below. You can find more videos like this on this channel here. You can also check out our website, which is worldclassfactory.com. We've got some tools. You got some other trainings on there as well. And of course, if you want some help from us to come in and help you build out a world-class maintenance organization, feel free to drop us a line. So until next time, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next video. See ya.